my first episode doing this. Obviously, I've been doing the TOJ pod for a long time now. That thing's changing there. It'll still be 2 days a week on the feed. People like Mike Giardi himself, and obviously many others will be on that show. That'll be pretty much Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the offseason. That said, first episode Saturday. This will be dropping Saturday morning. We are full-fledged into the NFL offseason now. If your team isn't very good, obviously the Jets went 7-10 this year. They are not in the playoffs. One day we'll see them playing again mid-January. I'm not sure when that'll be. That might be this year. That might not be. Good friend of the show, obviously the TOJ pod, Mike Giardi on. Mike, how we doing? You've been busy. The Patriots have first time in 24 years making a coaching change.
Yeah, it's been certainly a unique situation, one we haven't really had to deal with. Sure, there's some changes in coaching staff over the years, and this offensive coordinator leaves, gets a head job, McDaniels, O'Brien, those sorts of things, Matt Patricia, Brian Flores, but this is entirely different, and yet they managed to make it about as streamlined as possible. Let's not even have a coaching search. Let's just give it to a guy that's already on the staff, that we wrote it into his contract last year when he was a quote-unquote free agent, and probably came a year sooner than they thought it would, but here it is, and he's got some big shoes to fill, and he's got a roster that needs a lot of help.
Yeah, I want to get into some of the stuff for the Patriots and a little bit of Miami and Buffalo. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on Sunday. I want to start with the Jets here, though, and obviously, I know going into the year, you were really high in the defense, really high in Garrett and Brees, and I think we all were kind of in the similar spot that Rodgers just needed to be good, and this team should, if they stay healthy and Rodgers was good, this team should be a 10-11 win team competing with the Buffaloes and Miami's of the division and within the conference. That was like, how are they as good as Kansas City? Maybe not, but can they beat anybody else? Obviously, a lot of unfolded. I want to kind of just get your overall thoughts on what we saw this year. Did we misread this roster, or is it really come down to OC was really bad? The quarterback was horrendous. The offensive line was horrendous, and they got hurt a lot, and that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, he can't. I mean, 4 plays like for Rodgers, like
it's a joke. It's a sick
joke. I know,
joke.
right? It was evil. It's funny because you live in the New England area, you get the Patriot fans all and I was like, man, the league, for me as a football fan, I want the best players playing. I hate singing any of that stuff. Like, you can say what you want about Rodgers, and there are people that don't like him and the off the field stuff, like whatever. Like, the player, though, on Sunday, that's the guy I want to watch. I want to watch all the best guys. So that was brutal. That was a brutal thing for Jets fans. It was a brutal thing for the league. And yet, you mentioned it in the intro, they won 7 games with Zach, Simi, like,
Tim Boyle,
with some of the, Alan Lazard was a big free agent signee, and like he couldn't even be active there over the final month or so. So, yeah, I think honestly, if Aaron was healthy, at least flip it. At least think 10-7, and then who knows? Can he bring some of those guys to life? And maybe the offensive line is a skosh better because you have a quarterback that knows how to get rid of the ball, is not going to sit back there all day long. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, maybe there's a couple spots you misevaluated, but I still think by and large, had you told me Rodgers was going to be healthy, they'd have been a playoff team.
Yeah,
you'd have been getting what you wanted right now. You did at least, or at least last weekend, you would have had a game.
Yeah, look, I think this team. There's no way this team wasn't better than Pittsburgh. Like, I'm sorry, they're still good. They're still so good. I mean, even over a 2-year stretch, this defense is, by EPA per play, significantly the best defense have been in football. Obviously, again, fans of the Jets, for whatever reason, will pick at their own defense because obviously you're more critical because you expect more. This offense is over the last 2 years, by the opposite margin, significantly the worst offense in football. Like, it's not close. New England's the closest team, and then after that, it's another huge drop off. It's pretty stark, the difference from what we've seen from the Jets offense. I guess I'll start with the coaching staff perspective. Obviously, I think we all kind of assumed Joe Douglas isn't going to get fired. They're going to ride this thing out. I do think there was a little point there where, if they got blown out by New England, does Woody get a little emotional and say, dude, I can't do this again? More importantly, we knew Hackett wasn't going anywhere. I still am surprised we have not seen a veteran offensive assistant. I've mentioned a bunch. Again, it doesn't have to be Frank Reich or John Gruden or these people. They're risking not taking that job anyways. My point was, can you find somebody that's Rodgers would respect, but also understand that they might be better at scripting plays than Nate Hackett, because that's not a strength of the Jets. And more importantly, I think the biggest thing in the offseason that you really rarely see guys on their own team just destroying a coach publicly on social media. They've lit in pretty hard on Keith Carter. I mean, this is 7-8 guys now that have liked tweets, retweeted stuff, commented on Instagram posts, and like they haven't deleted it or anything. They've left that stuff up and doubled down. Are you surprised they haven't gone anywhere different with any coaching changes? Look, they fired Mike LaFleur last year, and he's now on Traeger's podcast because he's the new hot assistant again. It's pretty funny how that works, all because Zach Wilson didn't like him.
Yeah, glorious, right, for LaFleur. Now, I am a little surprised. And look, not from the sense that I think they're unfortunately, or I think they're married to Hackett. I think Aaron wants it, and I think Aaron would say to you, well, look, man, I wasn't there. If I had been there, you'd be talking differently about Hackett. So that buys him time. But I would have thought, or I think they should consider bringing another veteran voice in there to help him out. And the Carter thing is interesting. And to your point, like anytime guys react emotionally and then someone gets to them, or they,
the edited tweet button. Yeah, the edited tweet.
No, that, I know I said it, but it was in the heat of the moment. I don't really mean that. The fact that stuff got left up there, those guys know what they're doing. And I think that's something. Look, they're already sort of catering. They're not even sort of catering. They are catering to Aaron. Maybe this is a situation where you might want to look at the rest of the roster and say, we probably should do something about that, because it's a little too much. And I think that leads to, you're already going into the off season or when you come back for the spring workouts and saying to yourself, like, he's still here. I didn't want him here. He's still here. I tried to tell you. Yeah, right. So, and then at that point, everybody's already established. They've got their jobs. Like, if this is the point you want to move, this is the time to do it. You've got there are names out there. These guys' contracts are run out. You can jump on it. And then you wait until later. Then it's, what are you finding? You're not finding what should be really helpful to the team that needs some help there.
Yeah, look, I understand injuries. Like 14 different offensive line combinations. There's only so much coaching that can be done. Not everyone's Scarnecchia. Like, that's just not realistically going to happen. But Mike Munchak is as good of an offensive line person outside of Bill Callahan we have really in the NFL right now, and he's doesn't have a job. And he's talked about, hey, took a step away. I want to coach again. I just feel like it's such an easy, like, hey, dude, you're really good at this. You don't even have. Maybe you keep Keith Carter as the guy, whatever. If you want to if you want to kind of rep your guy because Hala hired him, sure. I'm not even saying fire somebody, but like, I just think we're going to end up seeing one of the former Green Bay names that has been around. They'll come in as they'll replace Calabrese as the quarterback coach or something. That'll be the big move. And I've talked a lot about it. Even if you're not going to give the scalp, right? Yankee fans wanted Boone, they wanted Cashman. They didn't get that. But at least they got hitting coach, farm director, these little things. Then you got Soto, right, to start the offseason. You're like, who cares about Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone anymore, right? I do think the Jets need to be in a spot where if you're not going to replace coaches and you're not really going to do much here, you're not going to replace any front office names, you kind of have to start out hot. March 15th, March 16th, whatever it is. Kind of day one, like a backup quarterback and a guard and a receiver probably should come off the board, and you should be that team that can get that stuff done. I guess, where do you look at? Obviously, offensive line is probably going to be the answer, but what do you look at as like, where does this team get to be competing with Buffalo on divisional round weekend, and they're the 4 seed, whatever it is next year? Well, besides Aaron being healthy, obviously. That's
right. No, and I'm with you. The offensive line, it's interesting because, again, here where I'm at, they have the same issue in terms of how do you fix their offensive line. And, they had a lot of young guys that they played this year, some out of necessity. So David Andrews is in the middle. That's good. You're locked up. That's at least one more year. He's still playing at a good level. But then it's like, well, City So, the rookie guard, whatever. I think he made the PFF, like all rookie team, whatever. We're not going to get into the grading system, but he was fine as a run blocker, not so fine as a pass blocker. And in this league, you have to pass. Cole Strange, their first-round pick from a couple of years ago, hurt again, basically playing average before that, and that you're now going to have the ACL, so who knows when he's ready to go. It's like and then they don't have tackles. And when it was going to be a free agent, Trent Brown's a free agent. I wouldn't, under any circumstances, bring Trent Brown back. But when you start to look, at the free agent list, it's a bad list. The draft is where it's at. but then, you're entrusting a rookie to step in and to play significant snaps, and that's always a little bit risky. So I think there are a lot of teams in the same boat that say, like, man, if we could just rebuild up front, that maybe we have something here. I just think when you look at the names, that are prospective free agents, it's not a very exciting list. Robert Hunt from the Dolphins maybe is a name. Like, there's just maybe Smith in Dallas, but he's 30 something and he's hurt all the time. Like, yeah, he's still, when he plays, he's still at a high level, but like, you're not getting 17 games in the playoffs out of him. You might be lucky to get 7 or 8 games. And then if you're lucky, that dovetails into he's ready to play in the postseason. But again, then you're playing a backup left tackle and maybe you just don't get there. So that's a problem. And from a receiver standpoint, and I've seen you tweet about it quite a bit, like, get a receiver. Because I think if Aaron's healthy, I think Garrett's catching 100 passes. And that might even be, I might be aiming low. It might be 115, so if you can get a good second option that teams have to at least respect and that can take advantage of that second corner is just not that good, or we put him in the slot and their slot guy can't handle him, then that's a place where you could eat. I think they probably thought that with Wilson and Lazard, they would be able to do that. And then Allen was a disaster. I don't know what you think. I mean, from contractually, but I wonder if he's even worth keeping around based on how bad this year went.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, you mentioned there. I do think we saw games last year. The Jets' offensive line was fine. It did not happen a lot, but the Chiefs game, they were really good. Like, they had moments where when AVT is not in there, the last 2 years, every single time he gets hurt, they just fall apart. I don't know. It's not even that yes, he's a very good player. It's no, like, love AVT, all that stuff. But, like, he just is such a good, consistent piece that I think everyone around him plays better. Look, the Jets need to figure out what they're doing with AVT. That's a huge part of their offseason. Is he a tackle or is he a guard? Like, make up your mind, pick a position. Yes, it's nice that you can flip in the, whatever, someone gets hurt, he can move. But go into camp, if he's your left tackle, your right guard, whatever it is, put him in a spot. Same with Joe Tippmann. It's great that he can play multiple spots. I'd like to see him get good at one spot first. Like, he did a nice job at center, but not quite as good as I think people thought. He was a better guard, I thought, this year on tape. He's just a big dude. Like, he's 6'4", 315 playing center. Not that he can't be. He could be your center. That's fine. So that's 2 spots. I think they restructure Lincoln. Having to replace 3 offensive line in one offseason with limited cap space is impossible. It's not going to happen, and they have not hit on day 3 picks at offensive line, so there's no way that's happening. I think you need to get your left tackle in the draft, or you need to figure out how to trade or sign for one. I don't know how that's going to happen. As you mentioned, it's Tyron Smith. It's like he just went with the Dwayne Brown route. I'm not sure the banged up, awesome veteran is the way to go. But again, maybe you try it again and hopefully you get lucky, and then you need a guard. I think if I'm the Jets, I don't know. I think about playing AVT right tackle and Tippmann at right guard and saying, can we go sign a Lloyd Cushenberry? Can we go sign a center? Probably a bit of a cheaper option. Rodgers probably wants the veteran center anyways. With some protections, and then you draft your left tackle. Now you go, okay, could this group be the 15th best group in the league? You mentioned receiver. I also think, and I know you know this, you've seen a lot of the Patriots teams. Not every offensive line with Brady was awesome, but the ball got out quickly, and teams had to respect Brady so much that you can't sit there and like just blitz a million guys. And if you do, he's going to pick you apart. And I'm not blaming Zach for all of it, but I don't know. You watch some of that stuff, and it's like teams we're playing against the Jets differently than they play against anybody else. You watch the last 3 years of when Zach plays against New England.
Yeah.
Bill called the game a little different than he did against other people. Am I crazy at thinking quarterback too? You mentioned a little bit, but I think that should fix the offensive line maybe to go from 31 to 23 just based on the quarterback play. And then if you add talent, maybe you're 15th next year.
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. And look, I understand why they stuck with Zach and tried to make it work. That was a major league investment. Every once in a while, he would give you those flashes, and you'd say to yourself, man, if we could just get a full 60 of that and string together some weeks, and it didn't happen. And now, to your point, like, it's got to be over. You can't. It's how I feel about Mac Jones in New England. It's the same thing. Like, I know he had the good rookie year, which Zach didn't, but then years 2 and 3, it went, big time. And year 2 was bad, but year 3 was
really bad,
horrific. And to me, the appetite to see that guy back under center, even as a backup, Like, I don't think the fans
Yeah,
have
like
any
I'm good. Like
desire
I'm
for it.
good. I know what
Yeah.
I'm seeing. I'm good.
And we talk about this every year. The roster is not the same. You're gonna have this different roster. Well, there's still gonna be, let's call it 40 guys that were in the room last year, and those 40 guys know that that quarterback ain't it. So if something happens to number one, there's not even the unknown of number two. Let's say, oh, gee, man, I busted my tail the entire offseason and came to the voluntary stuff, and like I'm in the best shape of my life, all that nonsense, and now it's over because I have no faith in that guy, and you'll see it again. Like the stories will come out. Oh no, he's better. He's grounded. He's this. He's that. The other thing he learned from it. Nope, it's over. Maybe he can salvage himself somewhere else, but I don't think he can salvage himself here. And that's the same way with the Jets. And I think there are when you look at it, and there will be some teams that are going to assign these guys to actually compete for starting jobs. But I think there are some options there that make you feel like, hey, if something were to happen, this guy can keep us afloat. Again, I say this all the time. If your starting quarterback goes down and you're built around the starting quarterback as the Jets are, you're not winning big without him. But a Jacoby Brissett, a Minshew, someone of that ilk that you've seen this year when they got their opportunity. Minshew's obviously had to start a ton of games this year, but they get their opportunity. They can keep you afloat. They can keep you in the picture. They can give you signs of life. They don't make everybody around them crazy. Garrett Wilson's not going, holy crap, how many times are going to get open and he doesn't get me the ball? It happens, but it doesn't happen as much as it happened with Trevor Siemian and Zach Wilson. So, yeah, that's definitely another spot that you have to address. And I think it'll be interesting to see how many of those guys are looking around saying, how's it going to shake out? What are some of the teams that are going to draft quarterbacks saying? Do they want to keep this guy seated for a little while, and that would give me 6, 8, 10 games as a starter before they turn the keys over? Or is it like, nope, that guy's coming in and we just want you to shepherd him, in which case they'll be looking somewhere else and saying, what's a better opportunity where I know I can get on the field?
Yeah, I want to ask you quickly about two backup quarterbacks. You mentioned one of them there. Two guys you've covered extensively. Two guys I think you know better than most people. Jimmy and Brissett feel like probably the two. Maybe I'm missing somebody here, but I think they're probably the two best actual football player backups. Like if Jacoby's on the Jets this year, they win 10, or I think they win 10 games pretty comfortably. I don't know. Jimmy's very confusing because when it's going good and teams around him playing the right way, he's got a new Super Bowl and he won a ton of games in San Francisco. He won games in New England when he played. It looked kind of pretty crappy this year in Vegas. Again, there's so much going on there. We don't have time to dive for an hour into Josh McDaniels. Although it looks like he'll probably end up in Atlanta with Bill, which would be pretty funny. I guess do either of those guys make sense? Obviously, I know people are going to point to Minshew. I think Minshew's played enough this year that I wonder if he's going to try to go. Indy brings him back and it's like, I want Richardson to compete for I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're going to do there. I'm just very curious on those two guys because the Jets obviously had interest in Jimmy last year. They had interest in a lot of guys. They had interest in Stafford and all these different people we've heard. Do either of those make sense for the Jets? And, like, what are you paying these guys? Because Jimmy's got $18 million a year last year. Like, is he really going to take 2 for 12? I would be shocked.
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to is there someone saying to him, no, you can compete for our starting job and we'll give you money that's commensurate to that, or, with incentives that can get you to a place where if you start, 12, 14 games for us, you'll make that $20 million. Because I mean, that's as much as it drives them crazy now, that's sort of the number for the average quarterback. You're signing these guys that, like, look what Baker's going to get. I mean, Baker is set to be a free agent. Like, I don't think he gets out of Tampa. I mean, so that means what? Either they work out an extension with him that's going to be, I would say, probably at least $25 million a year for multiple years, or he gets tagged because they don't have any other options, and now they're making this run in the postseason. So now you're picking in the 20s. Trask obviously isn't it, or you could throw a transitional tag on it, but no one's going to take that plunge for Baker Mayfield. So again, you're ending up having to pay him a fair amount of money. Like Brissett, to me, I was actually talking about this with regards to the Patriots because I think he should be someone that they put at the top of their list, especially if
him and Jaden Daniels kind of makes sense of like
100%, and that's
Mayo.
Yep, that to me is the thing. It's just again to spin it back here. Like if you're looking at it going, let's give Jaden Daniels some time. And look, if Jaden Daniels blows everybody out of the water from April on, and you roll into the season with him, and he looks like Stroud, okay, perfect, man. We paid Jacoby Brissett $10 million to be his babysitter, but I think that's probably what you're talking about for someone like Brissett is 10, maybe even north of that. And obviously the thing there is, hey, Jacoby, eventually we're going to turn it over to this kid, but in the meantime, you're going to get to play. You're going to get to show people that you can play. You might have to take a beating because maybe we don't have an offensive line, and that's just part of the. That's why we're giving you a couple extra million here. But that's the thing. I think he's probably of that group. He might end up being the guy of all of them that gets maybe the most, or him and Minshew. And then I would say with Jimmy, I think Jimmy's kind of cash, and I've been a Jimmy guy. I have a hard time between the injuries, which are now like it's every year. He's just not making it through. This year he got hurt before he got benched. And there's just so much things I think that now have to go right when it's around him. And like you said, when it is going right, he, quick release, he could zip the ball. There was things that you like, but I almost think now too, he's almost at the point where he feels it in the pocket a little bit too much. And it's just, there's a self-preservation thing there. Not that he's doing it on purpose, but like my body just can't take the hits like I'd be willing to take when I was 25.
Yeah, look, there's that group of, I think it's Jimmy, Dalton, it's probably Tannehill too, where, they make sense. All these guys make sense on paper. Quality backup for the Jets. The one thing and Joe Capper also talked about this in a previous episode, do not go into week 2, day 3, day 4 of free agency and have nobody signed. Go in, that should be priority number 1 outside of the offensive line and receiver. Go take care of whoever it's going to be. Give him a 2-year deal. He'll be here with Rodgers. That guy's job is your job's to mentor our day 3 pick. Go draft Jordan Travis in the 5th round. Jordan Travis is going to be an IR guy next year, anyways. Obviously, that leg injury is disgusting. Jordan Travis might never play an NFL snap, but maybe he's really good when he gets to the NFL. And the only way you're going to know is if you let him sit for a while. So if I'm the Jets, that's number 1 there. We mentioned receiver. Receiver's tough. Obviously, Antonio Pierce, we're recording this on Friday night. Antonio Pierce gets the Raiders job. Deserves it. Always be a little wary of hiring the intern.
Me too. Very
wary. And look, outside of that Chiefs game, a lot of those wins were not quite as the 5-4 whatever record looks nice. They beat the Jets in a game they had no business winning. They beat the Giants with a corpse and Tommy DeVito and running out there, and they beat the Vikings with Josh Dobbs 3-0. So just all I'm saying is, you better get that offensive coordinator and quarterback situation right, or it doesn't matter. That's the only reason I bring that up is because Devontae has been very outspoken about Antonio Pierce. That said, the Jets leaks came out week 8. Oh, the Jets are going. They're all in on Devontae. Rodgers talked about it. Garrett's moving to 5. They're all of the stuff. He's liking tweets about the Jets. I hate the like tweets thing. It's brutal. But how do you attack receiver? Because there's Pittman, Evans, Higgins, Calvin Ridley are the big 4. I would say. I'm not counting Odell on that. Sorry, he's got 30 catches for 4 touchdowns this year. It's not what it used to be. Those are the big 4. I don't even know if any of those guys get to free agency. And then obviously I mentioned Devontae, and then there's the draft. How would you attack it? What's even realistic for the Jets in this market? I guess Kendrick Bourne?
Bourne coming off the ACL, and I was actually talking to someone who's like, he's already like a month ahead. I'm like, that's great. I don't doubt it. I know he's devoted a lot of time to it. I think he's actually living with a guy who's training him and helping him with his rehab. But as we well know, year 2, or maybe the back half of year 1.
Yeah, look at Brees. Right. Look at Brees. He started to look like himself really the last 4 weeks.
Right. So if you look at it and say when he got hurt was right around middle of the year. So you'd be talking about sort of that same sort of timetable where, November, December is when you might see the old guy return. And that actually wouldn't be a bad thing. And I think he actually from a playmaking standpoint would be a nice little side piece. He's got a little bit more juice when he runs the football, I think, certainly than Lazard does. A little bit more quicks there. The Adams thing, I don't know how. Look, you're all in with Aaron, And I'm imagining that he's probably not going to cost more than a three or a couple of threes, right? I think you have to investigate it because again, you're putting it to the table, and then yeah, there's going to be unless you find the next guy, unless as you mentioned, like a Jordan Travis, something that comes along that you draft in the third day, and this guy develops into actually something. There might be a little bit of a lull after this all ends. And, Aaron's now talking about playing for multiple years, so we'll see. But you have to make the call. And I think the interesting thing for the Raiders is because they continue to be in this cycle, do they look at it and say, look, we're not ready to win right now. We don't have a quarterback. Like, Aiden O'Connell's not it. Where we are in the draft, you're reaching for somebody unless you want to trade up. So what do we do here? We talked about the veteran stopgaps. Like, is that enough to want to keep him? Or do you look at it and say, based on the money, be a little bit of a headache, like maybe it is time to move on. You got to make that phone call if you're them. Other than that, I think to your point, like Pittman, I think he gets franchised. I think Higgins probably gets franchised if they can't figure something out, which I doubt they will, because he'd be like, what's he going to do? Like, I'm not going to take $100 million. No, you're probably not going to be able to give it to me. So, you have to figure that out. Now, whether that then with both of those guys leads to bad blood and someone can lurk and poach them off of that, it's possible. I mean, Pittman already was kind of like, I don't really like the idea of playing on the franchise tag. Evans is obviously looks like he is getting free. They didn't sign him unless, like I said, maybe they work out something with Baker and then they decide to just slap the tag on him because he'd probably be their best available. But that'd be another one. Like if I get cold feet on Adams or I don't feel like that's going anywhere, if Evans is free agent, I think you have to talk to him. The same thing. I would try to make that a short, heavy guaranteed money, but on a short deal at his age because you don't know when it's going to drop off. But he continues to. What are we into this now? 9, 10 years? He's still 1,000-yard guy. There's certain things that he does well, and you put him with Garrett, it's pretty exciting. I think the quarterback would be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, look, I'm on the same page. I just think Pittman, Higgins, Evans, that body type of just something different they don't have. Obviously, well, they have it in a little bit in Brownlee. He's showed some nice stuff. Hopefully, this is the way I look at it. The Jets have a lot of nice. They've had a lot over the last couple of years. There's a lot of nice pieces, right? A lot of this guy's better than we thought. Yeah, Jason Brownlee's nice. He made the roster. He made some nice plays this year. Shouldn't be a starter yet. Like we don't need to get into that. Or Lazard's going to be better next year. Hopefully comes in shape, and with Rodgers, maybe he's into it. Who knows? I know everyone gives Saleh the Jets a hard time with the Rodgers people, and he walks over them. They basically 5 weeks in told Randall Cobb, like, you're a coach now. He played a little bit at the end of the year, but they straight up didn't want to play Billy Turner. They did everything to not play Billy Turner. They cut Adrian Amos. They cut Dalvin Cook. They benched Lazard as a healthy and active. And Robert Saleh, who usually says nothing at press conferences, literally said, I know Lazard's on a 4-year deal, but he'll be better the next year and a half. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, everyone thought it's a 2-year deal. Nice.
Yeah.